Most people who control you never give a single direct order. They don't need to. Because by the time you notice the pattern, you've already trained yourself to respond. This is how influence works when it doesn't announce itself. Before we begin, if this is the first time you're seeing content like this, consider subscribing. This channel doesn't follow trends. It reveals patterns most people never name. You'll understand why in the next 4 minutes. There's a version of this that happens quietly. Someone close to you, call them Morgan, shares something vulnerable. Opens up. Creates closeness. You feel trusted. 2 days later, they're distant. Not angry. Just unavailable. You text. They reply late. Short answers. Nothing wrong, they say. Just busy. You start wondering what you did. A week passes. Then suddenly warmth again. They reach out. Everything feels normal. Better than normal. You feel relief, but the cycle repeats. Closeness, withdrawal, uncertainty, return. You start noticing your own behavior changing. You're careful now. You don't bring up certain topics. You wait for them to initiate. You manage your reactions. You apologize for things you didn't do. Not because they asked you to, because the emotional cost of distance became heavier than the cost of adjusting. This is how control forms, not through force, but through the management of emotional consequences. What's happening here isn't random. It's intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. Connection is given unpredictably, removed without warning, then restored just before you give up. Your nervous system learns closeness is fragile. Your behavior determines whether it stays. Expressing needs risks losing it entirely. So you adapt. You become smaller, quieter, more accommodating. Not because you were told to, because the emotional architecture of the relationship rewarded compliance and punished autonomy. This is conditioning, and it works because there's no single moment you can point to as wrong. The reason this form of control is so effective is that it bypasses conscious resistance. There's no villain, no threat, no clear violation, just patterns. They pull away when you get too close. They return when you start moving on. They create urgency, then vanish. They frame your boundaries as rejection. Your brain doesn't process this as manipulation because manipulation, in most people's minds, requires intent and force. But power asymmetry isn't needed either. It just needs one person to control emotional access and the other person to need it. You don't realize you're being controlled until you notice you're managing your feelings instead of expressing them, until you catch yourself rehearsing conversations that shouldn't need rehearsal, until you realize the relationship only feels stable when you're not being yourself. Awareness doesn't arrive as anger. It arrives with clarity. A quiet recognition that your emotional responses have been shaped not by your values, but by someone else's needs. When did you stop reacting naturally and start calculating what was safe? If this pattern felt familiar, you already understand why this channel exists. Subscribe if you want more like this. Share it if someone needs to see it. This is Unspoken Psychology.